talking sports, and I'm sure you do too, because the great thing about sports, everybody has their opinion and nobody's wrong. I don't think anybody's wrong. You know, your opinion might be different than mine, but at the end of the day, sports is sports, and nobody can predict the future.
Welcome back to another brand new episode, Ethan and Mike Sports Show. I am your host, Ethan. Today we got a special guest today in the building from the host of the Morley Show for his Las Vegas Raiders, Joe Morley. Everyone, man, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for letting me on, Ethan.
Man, you know how long I've been trying to get you on in this show. You have no idea.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've been doing some work together. We just haven't been able to work it out. We finally did.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We finally got an episode going out. Because I've been on your lives a couple of times on game days, especially, which I'm hoping I'm going to be on there tonight, actually, for the Jets and Broncos. So that's going to be a fun one right there. But hopefully I'll be on there. I don't know about Sunday, but for certain for tonight, when this recording is on Thursday. So hopefully by then I'll be on there.
Yeah, tonight, Thursday night game. Can't get a better matchup, right?
The Jets and the Broncos. Two of the worst teams right now, as it's at this point right now. But I just got money on Broncos before starting this. But just to get our sponsor out of the way, thrivevicefantasy, or AKA Thrive Fantasy, is a daily sports app that is used over or under. They have given more $1,300,000 in prizes since they launched in 2018. Today is a good way to start because you get to pick 10 out of 20 players. If you win, that is great news. If you use our code Ethan and Mike, you get $20. When you put down $20 or more, you win and we win. So what are you waiting for? Download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store and prop up today. And now, Joe Morley, let's start out the questions here today, just before we start going through fantasy and stuff like that. So just bring me back to how Joe Morley, the show, started out through the podcast.
I started out, it's been a couple months now, so I think I started in March, maybe April. Can't remember the exact date. But I got really sick at the beginning of this year, and I'm not sure what it is. I know people will say COVID and stuff like that. I'm not sure what I had. Never had it, positive test for COVID or anything like that. But my lungs just gave out on me, right? So I was down to like 57% intake, and I was like, and so my only way to rehab it was to start talking into the mic. My wife always wanted me to start a podcast because she's not a big sports fan, and so I'm basically here telling them stats and stuff, and they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. So I bought a mic, and I said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And if you listen to some of my early stuff, you could hear it in my voice, like the difficult breathing, the taking the deep breaths and stuff like that. But the more and more I do it, the more and more I feel that better in my lungs. And I've always had that passion for sports, so it's been a great experience for me. So it's a win-win: rehab and do something I love.
That's always 100%. Like, I know when I always talk to most of my friends, they'll be like, "The heck are you talking about?" Like, I just care about cars and stuff like that. I don't care about sports like that. I'm being for real. Like, I do say like all the stats, everything. Fitzmagic, and be like, "Who the heck is Fitzmagic?" I know there's a LeBron James and MJ, but that's about it. That's what they'll tell me right there. The best.
Yeah, I get that same. I get the same thing. Like, how do you retain all those stats in your head? And then same thing. Like, people talk about cars, and I'm just like, I don't know about all that, but I could tell you about this and this and this in the sports world. But yeah, everybody has their niche, and sports. I love talking sports, and I'm sure you do too, because the great thing about sports, everybody has their opinion, and nobody's wrong. I don't think anybody's wrong. Your opinion might be different than mine, but at the end of the day, sports is sports, and nobody can predict the future. You know what I mean?
Got you on my podcast today. So let's talk about the Raiders against the Pats last week. What happened to the Raiders? I was watching that game. It was just a total nightmare right there. It was close in the first half, and then after that, you guys collapsed. Why was
that? I think the score made it look worse than it was. It was. They actually hung in there, and they were actually pretty good. I think they went away from the run game a little too early. Hey, the Patriots are a good team. They're going to shut down your best player, and that's Belichick's thing. You knew going in that he was going to shut down Waller, and without Henry Ruggs, it was going to be very tough for the Raiders to move. And their defense, the Raiders' defense, yeah, they've made some moves. They got some young players, but they can't tackle, man. They're having a hard time tackling. They're having a hard time, getting those sacks again. They have some really good quarterbacks, but if you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, you're going to let them go. And you saw what they did. I mean, they shut down Cam Newton. They shut down Julian Edelman, and they said somebody else beat us. And, well, guess what? Sony Michel and Rex Burkhead showed up and said, okay, we'll beat you. And that's what the Patriots are known for that. On any given Sunday, they have a different guy stand up and do it. And you got to pick your poison. The Raiders tried, but I think it was more of a statement game for the Patriots to show that, hey, we're not dead yet, guys. We're still here. And they took it as, a lot of hype on the Raiders coming in at 2-0 after beating the Saints. And I think Patriots took it as as their way to wake up the world and be like, hello, guys, still Bill Belichick over here.
Yeah, that's what I noticed with Patriots. Every time like a team's like undefeated, like I can tell you that as a Dolphins perspective there. Like there's times we start 3-0, and then once we play the Pats and Gillette Stadium, they put us right back in reality. Go 46 to 10 at one point. I remember like that was like a few years ago. I remember that. Like we started 3-0. Like, okay, this is the hype train. We're getting good. This is a new season. And then we just lose 3-1. And then next thing you know, we're 7-9 at the end of the season. Which is it's like the Patriots are kind of like a reality check if you really think about it. Every time you play against the Pats.
Yeah, I think that's where you always gauge how good your team is. And even this year, people were doubting how good they were going to be. And you know what? They're showing that it's the coaching over there. It's not the players. They could plug players in, and they use the players to the best of knowledge, their ability. So, yeah, anytime your team plays and that's what I said about my Raiders in my podcast. I was like, hey, it was a gut check. There you go. Now you know that, yeah, you were good, but you got a lot of work to do.
Transition to the fantasy waiver wire for week 4 now. So let's start out with quarterbacks. I'm going to throw some out there, and you see what do you think about it. So this is what I say. Fitzmagic versus Seattle. So why did I say Fitzmagic? Because, as you know, the Seattle corners have been really struggling against opposing offense, such as Dak Prescott and Cam Newton at times, giving them pretty good numbers in the end zone, which makes it a really close game to each other. So that's why I really think Fitzmagic is going to do pretty solid against Seattle. So if you have trouble finding a quarterback in the fantasy, I will stick with Fitzmagic. But then another quarterback I have is Baker Mayfield against the Cowboys. Once again, like as I mentioned with Seattle, the Cowboys have weak corners and their defense is not sufficient. That's what I meant to say. So expect like a shootout, but not too much of a shootout because they'll mostly run Kareem Hunt and Chubb.
We put them together though. We put it Nick Hunt, so for that backfield.
But I will stick with also Baker Mayfield, and then my last one I have is Jared Goff versus the Giants. Last week, if you saw the Bears, they did the 49ers. They did pretty solid against the Giants, so I will stick with Jared Goff because he had an explosive day with the Buffalo Bills defense. So I will stick with that for quarterbacks. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. Even though Baker Mayfield still scares me, this has to be a good matchup because Dallas has no defense. So I did start Baker Mayfield in one of my leagues this week. Ryan Fitzpatrick, you hope that the same Ryan Fitzpatrick that played the Jacksonville Jaguars shows up and he does his thing, which, if they can get that running game going, like I said, with Gaskins, it should be a good one. Other than that, yeah, I mean, a lot of guys are probably already picked up. I don't know who else is on there. I know I've heard more talk this week about Gardner Minshew. I'm not buying into it again. Don't buy into that again. But yeah, I looking at the waiver wires, I wouldn't say there's not a lot of good options this week, and the people that are on there are playing some tough defenses.
Just to go transition to running backs, I'll give out 2 actually right here. I like Taylor versus Bears. I think Jonathan Taylor's could be really explosive as the Colts' new running back since Marlon Mack has gone down. So I really would trust in Taylor. And he's good with a passing game too. So I will trust in Taylor. And then Robinson against the Bengals. Bengals struggle against the run, as you saw with Miles Sanders last week. So I will trust in James Robinson. And he is the AFC Rookie of the Month. So I will trust in him as well. What do you think, Morley?
No, yeah, those are two good picks. Are we going by like best who I like this week, or who's on the waiver wire that people could pick up? Because I would say that Jeff Wilson goes off again. I mean, I was pushing Jeff Wilson last week, and people were like putting me down, like no. And you saw what Jeff Wilson did, and they're playing Philly again. And I'm not really sold on the Philly defense, and I think that if you wanted to go out and get a sneaky pick, Jeff Wilson should be on a lot of waiver wires right now.
Yeah, I agree with there too. It's just with Robinson, because sometimes people don't trust Robinson yet, but I think Robinson's a key player to snatch if you still have it in the fantasy leagues.
Yeah, and you saw what the Bengals can be ran over, so I think Jacksonville does that.
Let's switch to wide receivers now. There's a wide receiver I really like, and don't forget me, I like Tyler Boyd's from Cincinnati against this game against Jacksonville. I think Joe Burrow really likes Tyler Boyd's and AJ Green, so I will really stick to Tyler Boyd's if he's still on your fantasy waiver wire, which I don't think a lot of people has picked him up yet, but I feel that Tyler Boyd is really underrated in this league, so I would say Tyler Boyd's would be a nice pickup right there.
Yeah, a lot of people are sleeping on. A lot of people released him for some reason, and that was weird to me. But I could throw some names out there that I think that they might be picked up, but depending on your fantasy league. So I can only tell you like who are like rostered under 50% basically. Mecole Hardman should have a good game this week, especially with, in New England. Tyreek Hill should get the Gilmore treatment, so one of them is going to be open on the other side, right? Randall Cobb, I think he's come on the last 2 weeks. So if Randall Cobb's on your, out there with playing against Minnesota, I would believe that he's been a good pickup. I think he's had over 90 yards per game the last 2 weeks. And then the Eagles, I put this on my own page this week. Greg Ward. Greg Ward is the number one guy in Philadelphia right now. So, I mean, when you're looking at fantasy, if you go at the top of the depth chart, that's what you're always looking at. If you can get a top of the depth chart kind of guy, and that's what Greg Ward is, after all these injuries up there. So Wentz has to throw it to somebody, and it looks like it's going to be Greg Ward.
Oh, yeah. Especially when Wentz is struggling with that offensive line, allowing a lot of sacks on him, and they're losing bodies on O-line. So I don't know about the Eagles, how they just tied with the Cincinnati last week, so it's going to be very interesting right there. Tight ends. A waiver wire that I really like here is actually the tight end for the Lions, actually. Hawkinson against the Saints. If you know how the Saints played against the Las Vegas Raiders, letting Waller get phenomenal yards, I think Matthew Stafford can target Hawkinson in this game against the Saints, and that will be a really key if you're really struggling at tight ends, really. In this year, or if you had Jonathan Smith or Eric Ebron as your starter and you're trying to look for a replacement, Hawkinson will be a good person to pick up.
Yeah, I think you're dead on to that one because the Saints are 32nd against tight ends this year. And maybe that's all because of Waller, what Waller did to him. But they have the worst defense against tight ends. And the thing I like about Detroit is they could take the top off you with Galladay being back. Saints are gonna have to focus on other places, and Hawkinson should be wide open, even though he hasn't lived up to the hype that we all thought he was gonna have. This could be one of the breakout games. I was gonna say, with that Pittsburgh game, it throws it off because Eric Ebron should be picked up, in a couple leagues, but I wouldn't do it this week since they're not gonna play this week. And Dalton Schultz of the Cowboys, why not? Why not take a shot on him, especially against the Browns defense? He's gonna at one point he's gonna get the ball. They try to go after the 3 wide receivers, and last week they had a 4th wide receiver and Wilson break out. But that offense is the number 1 offense in the league, and if you can get a weapon, a piece of it, why not?
Yeah, I'll agree with there too, man. That would be a great pickup, especially with the Cowboys playing against the Browns defense. I know both defenses with the Cowboys and Browns are almost the same, just the Browns a little bit up there, but there's going to be a field day for both quarterbacks and the tight ends. And I'm going to move on to flex. So who I got here is Darrell Henderson for the Rams. I really liked him playing against the Bills last week, stepping up with 112 yards and a touchdown. So that was really key. So I really would pick him up especially since they're going to play against the Giants. So I really will go with Henderson right here for the flex. If you're really struggling with the flex, I'll get Henderson right there.
Yeah, if he's still available, hopefully he is. You can get him. I like guys like you know what, Rex Burkhardt got me believing, man, in what he did last week, and we've seen it before. We've seen in the couple seasons that he's gone off and he's done his thing. Another guy that could be a sneaky play, and I'm not sold on this team at all. The Bears, I'm not sold on the Bears, and they're playing the Colts at the number 1 defense this week, so. This one's a buyer beware, I guess you would say, but Anthony Miller could be a sneaky play with Nick Foles as the quarterback, just because everybody's going to, dive right in on Allen Robinson, so it leaves another guy wide open.
Right.
And then, why not T. Higgins in Cincinnati? Joe Burrow throws that rock all over the place. Like, I think he's throwing the most of anybody in the league so far. So why not get one of the weapons that – and, if – the Bengals aren't going to win a lot of games, but they can get you a lot of garbage points, and that's what we're looking for in fantasy, just points, right?
For fantasy purposes, yes. That would be more crucial than the actual game, really. Now, if you're a fan of the Bengals, it's a different story. Then, yeah, you actually want to win. But for fantasy, you just want to win the week and just have bragging rights at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're not looking for wins and losses out of teams. You're just looking for those points.
Those crucial points. Defense, I got 2 teams, Cardinals defense and the Rams defense, both playing against 2 weak offenses, the Carolina and the Giants. Carolina, although they do have Mike Davis, and he's been holding up for McCaffrey, but I just think the Cardinals defense can stop Carolina. And then, again, for the Rams defense, the Giants they don't have Barkley for the rest of the year, so it's kind of hard for the Giants to score some points there. So I would expect Rams to do pretty good like they did last week against the Bills with Aaron Donald.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get the Rams defense, you grab them right now, because I think you play anybody against the Giants, and I think you play anybody against the Jets. That's my philosophy this season, because both of those teams are horrible.
Denver's defense.
Yeah, I think Denver's defense might have been one of the most picked up this week. Just because, and they have a lot of injuries. It's not like they're a great defense this year. They're having their issues over there too. But when you're playing the Jets, you do whatever you want with them. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of another team that's not picked up. And if you're in like some deep leagues and you need it, and like you're looking at the waiver wire and you're like, oh man, there's not some really good players out there. One I might start would be the Bengals, just because they're playing Jacksonville, and Jacksonville has the potential of turning the ball over and not being. You saw it last week against Miami.
Yeah.
We have to depend on what team Jacksonville comes out. So if you wanted to play the Bengals defense, I don't recommend it, but it is something in a deeper league that if you need somebody, that's who you can go to. Or you turn around and you play Jacksonville if Jacksonville's available too. You can get one of those defenses in that game, because Jacksonville should be able to get a lot of sacks. And remember when Jacksonville was like a top defense, everybody had them, and now they're on the waiver wire. Now it's like they're out there, and you can
get them.
They're week to week. Yeah, they're week to week out there. So it's weird because they're saying that Jacksonville is only rostered in ESPN leagues in 1% of ESPN leagues. So that might be a good defense, just sacks alone, because we saw the Eagles put 8 sacks on Joe Burrow last week. I think the Jacksonville defensive line is going to get a lot more than that, or at least match it.
I really think people should really pick up here is Blankenship from the Colts. He's been really efficient kicker, really. I just think, especially this week for the Colts, I will really put him in if you're really struggling with kicker as well. Now, we had Bucker last week. That was horrendous right there, missing that. A crucial extra point and field goal for a winner. I had one person in my league that actually needed 5 points, and he didn't win that game. So Bucker, I would trust in Bucker too, especially against the Pats, but I will go with Blankenship over Bucker.
Yeah, I think Blankenship's a good one. I don't think Chicago's defense is as good, so I think the Colts are going to be scoring on that one. Fairbarn of Houston, I think if he's out there, of course they're going against Minnesota, which Minnesota gives up some points. Joey Sly, I've been sleeping on him. I think I picked him as like my dislike for the last like 2 weeks in a row, and he's killed me. So Joey Sly, if he's out there for Carolina, that offense actually is doing better than people expect him to be. They put up points, and even if it's like I said, even if it's garbage time, and he's kicking these extra points in garbage time, he's putting it up. And I'm trying to think of one more. I'll try to give you one more. Maybe nah, I think I'll be good on that one. I don't want to be stretching it more, but I think I gave you two good ones right there.
No, those are good kickers right there. I will really trust that if you're struggling for fantasy. Right, Vice Fantasy, just to tell Joe what that is. Fantasy is going over under of who you think this player will get. Will they get more catches and this amount over under that situation right there? So my first player that I have here, Hopkins, will he get more than seven catches on Sunday? Over or under?
Over. I would say over for Hopkins. Yeah.
Over?
Against Carolina, yeah, I would say over.
I would say over too. Hopkins has been really their number one wide receiver right there, and Carolina has been really struggling on defense. So trust me, I'll go over Hopkins. 7 catches for certain.
7 catches, yeah, I'll go over on that.
Especially since I have him in my fantasy, so I'm hoping he gets more than that. And then let me go to the second one now. Now, you know how Baker with his interceptions every time, like mostly every game, he will get like an interception at least. This year, he's been 5 touchdowns and 2 picks right now. Now, would he get a pick against Dallas in the Dallas defense? Over or under?
Over under 1?
Yep, just at least 1.
And you can't go even, huh? With just 1. Yeah, I'd say under. How about that? I'll go. I got trust in Baker this week. How about that?
You trust in Baker Mayfield, the commercial man.
I don't know if it's more of a trust Baker Mayfield or how bad Dallas defense. How bad I think Dallas's defense is. So, but yeah, I'd go under that.
I think he'll just get like 1 pick, so I'm gonna go over. Just knowing how Baker Mayfield is, like he'll get you a good game, and then he'll just throw you a pick for some odd reason. So I just think Baker will throw a pick, but they will win the game, which I think the Browns will win that game for certain. The way how if their running game's good, I will go Browns right there.
All right.
And then my last one I got, since George Kittle might be coming back, will he get more than 60 yards off that injury? Over or under?
Jimmy G should be back this week as well, so that might help out too. Over under 62 yards. Yeah, you know what? I'll go over because, they like their tight ends up there. And, yeah, I'll take the over. I'm not a big fan of the Phillies defense. So, yeah, I can see him going over 62.
Yeah, I agree. They're over there for Kittle. Coming back from that injury, I think he will get the 60 yards right there. And plus a touchdown. So, I know Bogart, if he's listening here, I know he would love that for certain. Just for a win for Sunday Night Football. Shout out to him.
Shout out to the GMM Network.
GMM Network coming next week on the podcast, so stay tuned right here, Morley. It's Floridian picks. So Floridian picks, we pick 3 teams. I pick 3 teams that will match up, and we see who wins that. That's Floridian picks right there, and because this podcast is based in Florida. So we're going to start off with the Miami Dolphins in Seattle. Who do you got, Morley?
I'm taking Seattle.
Seattle?
I like, I liked Brian Flores. I like what he's doing down there. And I've always said that the Dolphins were going to improve this year, but the wins weren't going to come. They're going to come up. Seattle has no defense either. They have one of the worst defenses in the league. And so the Dolphins are going to be able to score on them. I just think that Russell Wilson and that offense is going to be too much for the Dolphins.
Okay. I see, like you said, Seattle's defense struggles. I think Russell Wilson's actually could be too much for my own Miami Dolphins team, really. If you saw last week against Dallas, he threw to Tyler Lockett 3 touchdowns, and we were up, 30-16 or 15 at one point. So Dallas was playing catch-up. So it's going to be tough. I'll tell you that. I'll say it will be a close one, not like a blowout. So it will be 27-24 Seattle. As much as I want to go for Miami, but I just think Seattle has the upper edge than Miami, unless we come up with turnovers and crucial catches. That's what I would really say for Miami right there. So I got Seattle this week.
And Seattle sometimes always lays an egg on a West Coast trip. You know what I mean?
For certain. That's for certain. And now we're going to go to your Raiders versus Bills matchup.
All right.
The 3-0 Bills against the 2-1 Raiders. This is going to be a fun matchup. I wish I could have watched it, but they're going to show the Pats and the Chiefs game. But who you got, Morley? I know who it is, but let's see what you got, Morley.
All right. I know I'll probably get killed by my own fan base, by the Raider fan base, but I'm taking the Bills this week in that game just because I'm a Raider fan, and trust me, I believe – I believe the Raiders 100% can beat the Bills? Oh, yeah, I think they can. Would it surprise me if they do beat the Bills? No. I just think they have so many injuries to this team right now. They're down to the third offensive tackle. Jacobs is banged up. He's playing, but he's banged up. Waller's banged up. He's playing. They lost their number 1 and number 2 wide receiver this week. They're not playing in Ruggs and Edwards. The linebacker, Wachowski, has to come back. He's probably going to come back this week, but he's banged up. John Abrams is banged up. So they have all these players that are banged up, hurt, and it's no excuse. It's no excuse. You got to play. You got to next man up. But when you're playing a team like the Bills, who are 3-0, who and I got killed by Bills Mafia last week because I go, yeah, you guys beat the Rams, but something happens in the second half with the Bills. You saw it when they played Miami. They were up big against Miami, and then they came back. But luckily, the Bills are good enough that they can get that last touchdown and win the game. But something in the second half knocks the Bills down for some reason. I don't know what it is, and that's what I tell Bills fans. Like, you need to be worried about what your team is doing at halftime, because after halftime they're a whole completely different team.
It's weird because they almost turned out like the Atlanta Falcons. They were at 28-3 at one point. They almost shook the game. Now, the last penalty call the league said that it was a penalty. That it was not a penalty, I should say, not a penalty, and then the Rams should have won that game. But other than that, it was just the Bills almost choked that game, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, they almost did. And I forget the final score of the Miami game, but it was the same thing in that game that they came back. And, I just – man, it hurts me to say it because, being a Raider fan and all that, but I kind of just have to see it. And I should have saw it last week in New England, and I didn't. And maybe that's what's forcing my hand in this one, because I know that I was doing my fan base picks last week, and I was like, okay, they could beat New England because I knew they could. But with all the injuries, you have to take that into effect. You have to.
This one right here, the Bills and Raiders, I like this matchup a lot, since the Bills Mafia against the Raider Nation right here. I'm actually going to go with the Bills, actually, as much as I want to see Raiders. Like you said, the Raiders are banged up, and I just like Josh Allen and their offense. If they can stay consistently like the first half to the second half, then they have the game control. Now, they do what they did last week against the Rams, then it's going to be a good game, and then the Raiders are going to come close, but I think the Bills will hold on to win the game, really 35, let's say, to 28 right there.
I'll take that score.
Which I think it would be like a high scoring like that, but I don't think the Raiders were going to win the game right there. I think the Bills will win that. But then my last one right here, the Chiefs and Pats. So this is going to be very interesting. Patrick Mahomes coming off of a huge win against Baltimore, and Lamar Jackson only landing Lamar Jackson 97 yards. That's unheard of for Jackson right there. And then you have Cam Newton coming out strong against the Raiders and really showing out the league that the Pats are still here. So with that matchup, who do you got?
I'm going to take the Chiefs, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Like you said, I think Bill Belichick knows how to scheme against certain teams, and I think they're going to scheme good against the Chiefs. But the one way to beat the Patriots is to running the ball up the middle, and that's what the Raiders went away from last week. And I don't think the Chiefs are going to do that. They're going to try to get their running backs up the middle, and man, I like the Patriots. I just don't think they have enough talent this year like they've had. So I think they keep it close. They just don't win the game.
I actually do have the Chiefs winning, actually, too. I think the Chiefs right here, they're going to dominate against the Pats. I know there's going to be a close game, like you said. It's going to come down to like a field goal near the end of the game. I really feel that. And the Pats defense, although they've been solid, they've been holding on to teams like the Raiders. Seattle, not too much, because there was like a on and off type of feel. It's kind of like a throw off right there. But I think Patrick Mahomes has been on fire. from last week, and I think he's gonna bring it to the Pats right there. So gonna be a good game right there for certain for the Chiefs against Pats right there. So it'll be 31-28 final score. That's what I feel for the Chiefs right there. That'll be a good game right there.
Hey, one more nugget I forgot to throw out there about that Bills Raider game.
Yeah.
If you have Stephon Diggs in your fantasy league, beware. Beware when you start them and lower your expectation because, like I've been telling people all year and they don't believe me, Raiders shut down number one wide receivers. So with Mullins over there, he's looking like a top cornerback. If you go back and look at all the Raider games this year, the last three, the number one wide receivers really don't do much. If they do, it's all in garbage time.
Pretty sure Edelman got stopped, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, they shut down Edelman. Emmanuel Sanders was the number one wide receiver for the Saints that game, and he didn't do nothing. I want to say that Robbie Anderson had one big catch against them in week one. The Raiders are known, and that's what John Gruden does. He tries, and Gunther, they try to take away your number one wide receiver and make you beat him that way. So I'm not saying Diggs is not going to do anything. He might get a touchdown. He might, do something. But I would just lower the expectations because he's been having some big games.
But thank you, man, for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming. And great to have an episode with you, Morley.
Yeah, thanks for letting me on, Ethan. We've always talked, and now it's just great to actually put everything together.
For sure, man. Thank you guys for listening to Ethan and Mike Sports Show, episode 41. I'm your host, Ethan, and we'll see you next week, episode 42, seeing Bogart scot-free. Take care, guys.